Hello, Hispanic Patriots. This is the Hispanic Patriot Podcast, a weekly show broadcast from deep behind enemy lines in an undisclosed location in Colorado. I am your intrepid host, Hugo Chavez Ray, the Hispanic Patriot. Our co host, Nick, is otherwise engaged tonight, so I'll be flying semi solo because I will be having our good friend Adam DeRito co hosting with me. He should be joining us shortly. So we begin tonight with a celebratory announcement. The Hispanic Patriot Podcast is celebrating its third anniversary this month. And we want to thank all our followers, all our subscribers on YouTube, and we hope to continue growing with your help. Uh, we thank you for your support, and we will continue to try to bring you informative and entertaining topics for you. So let's. We have a kind of a solemn topic to start off with today, and that is that we have our our good friend and a well-known figure.
Oh,
Well,
I am
there's
here.
Adam.
Made it from work. Here you go. Just in time.
Awesome, awesome. So we're just opening up. We're talking. I'm going to open up with a announcement, kind of a solemn topic. Our friend
Rescue. Just before 10 a.m. today, Clearwater Fire and Rescue, along with the Clearwater Police Department, responded to a house in the 1000 block of El Dorado Avenue for a medical-related call. It was discovered at that time Terry Bollea, also known as Hulk Hogan, was experiencing a serious medical-related issue. Personnel provided medical treatment at that time and transported Mr. Bollea to Morton Plant Hospital, where he died at 11:17 a.m. The Clearwater Police Department is conducting a death investigation, which is standard in these types of cases. There are no signs of foul play or suspicious activity related to this call for service at this time. Our personnel is providing the family with the necessary resources. I'm strongly encouraging everyone to keep the family in their thoughts and respect their privacy during this difficult time. We will not be answering any questions, but we will provide additional information when it becomes available. Any public records request should be filed through our public records section with the Clearwater Police Department. No records will be released today. Our thoughts are with the family, and again, we ask everyone to respect their privacy during this difficult time.
And there you have it, our good friend, the Hulk. Saw him at the RNC, and
Yep.
he brought the house down with his. This is kind of shocking to me. I mean, I didn't know he was in kind of health issues or anything like that. So it's totally unexpected for me. And it's a sad situation. He's only 71.
Yeah. I mean, whole life of steroids and drugs and drinking though, and I know he cleaned up his life in the last decade or so, and he's really been trying to take care of his body like a lot of those guys have. But sometimes it's when it's your time, and it's unfortunate. Really glad we got to see him at the RNC. He put on quite the show, tearing off his shirt and doing all those things right after the Trump assassination, and it was a privilege to be able to see him, there for sure.
He was pure MAGA, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to be missed. So we extend our heartfelt thoughts and prayers for the family. And as the officer said, we will respect their privacy in this time of grieving. So we wish the family the best. And we know that we'll be hearing a lot more about his life and his contributions to American culture. Definitely.
He's just hanging out with Macho Man Randy Savage now,
One of a kind. Absolutely, yeah. I saw a meme with those two.
Yeah.
They're up there in the heavenly gates. So, yeah, it's a sad news today. But we move on. We've got some really salacious and interesting topics to talk about tonight.
All right, let's go.
And the first one, of course, is what's near and dear to our hearts, is this Central Committee meeting that we had Monday night.
The goat rodeo, as Kyle Clark likes to call
The
it.
goat rodeo, as Kyle Clark has dubbed it.
It's the only time I'll ever agree with him.
I was going to say the same thing. I don't agree with anything the guy said, but I mean, he nailed that one. And, you know, people were talking about why in the world would they live stream a Central Committee meeting? It's like putting your worst laundry on display for everybody.
Like, I can understand a private link for the Republican Party or something like that. Like, there might be a few leaks from there, but obviously whoever is handling the social media, the GOP, doesn't know basic security protocol for these types of things. But yeah, I mean, I only tuned in for like a few minutes. I was at a meeting that night. I was actually trying to help a mayor with a recall, in another town close to me, actually doing the important work that we're trying to do that, no one's paying attention to. And, people are just like, are you seeing what's going on YouTube right now? I'm like, no, do I want to turn this on? And I looked at it and I'm like, I'm sorry, but didn't they all complain about Zoom meetings and the validity of IDs and verifying and no offense, but I always tell this, like, if you're going to be a state central committee member, like what you have to do, like 1 to 4 actual meetings a year. I don't know. I'm not an SEC member, so if you can't make the time to make those meetings or call for work, I can understand like sickness or military duty or something like that. But like these meetings need to be in person. There needs to be debate. There needs to be dialogue. There needs to be Robert's Rules of Order. And no offense, but half the people on that Zoom call probably can't even turn on a Windows 95 computer with 166, megahertz of RAM.
Yeah. Well, this was you're hitting on several points that I was touching upon because, as we had the hybrid meeting back on March 29th,
right,
and 100 people tried to join in virtually, there was a ton of problems. I was getting personal texts from a couple of people who were out in outlying areas with poor internet connection, and there's no way to control that, of course. I mean, people have what they have, but the bottom line is that the party should know better and understand that we need to have these things in person. And
especially with elections of serious members. And, I can understand, like, we need to discuss bylaw things and, we're not doing any votes, but it needs to be like a discussion to get ready for a real meeting. Like, okay, I could see the validity in a Zoom meeting because it is a very large state. When it comes to elections or bylaws amendments or serious election decisions and strategy, like these need to be in person, no matter what side of the aisle you sit on. So,
yeah. And I echo your sentiments about, I see a lot of people on the Central Committee that sign up to be on the Central Committee, they get elected, and then they don't want to perform their duties. So, my answer to those folks, with all due respect, is, if you're not going to perform the duties of the position that you're seeking, then don't seek the position. Let someone else serve. There's plenty of other people that want to serve, as witnessed by some of the elections in some of the counties. If you're not going to serve, then don't sign up. I know some of these people in some counties that will remain unnamed, shall we say, were goat herded into becoming Central Committee bonus members because they wanted to have the votes.
Well, yeah, what happens is there's this individual in the state and she puts everything on a piece of paper and goes to these meetings around the state, and then she hands it out and says, this is who you're voting for. I don't care what they say. I don't care what their speeches are. I don't care about your independent thought. This is who you're voting for because this is who we're putting in. I'm very much against that entire process. I witnessed it at multiple county reorganization meetings, including Weld twice.
Yep.
Right. So they're all, you can't say rigged election because it's not technically rigged because they're not like messing with the machines or the votes. It's just everything is pre-elected before you even walk into the meeting. Right.
Yep. Yeah. And, I have no problem with, say, lobbying for your candidate or whatever, and informing people.
Yep.
But the ultimate decision should be with the person with the information that they have. Right. I don't ever remember my my colleagues and all twisting arms or whatever. We just like to make sure that people are informed. And this last meeting in March, that where we got our new chair, is a good example of newcomers who totally unknowledgeable about the process, how it works. They were just basically puppets they ushered in and said, okay, like you just said, here's who you need to vote for, and no other information provided, you know.
Yep.
But shame on those people for letting themselves be manipulated like that as well. So
Yeah.
it's up, you know, it's on them as well.
Right. I think you should be able to hear out the speeches, make your own informed decision based upon your own morals and ethics about who you want to elect, not have somebody who you barely know or someone who's promising you an in. I've seen that a lot as well. Like, oh, we're gonna get you in on this committee, or we're gonna invite you to this party, or you're gonna get to go to this fundraiser because you've never been able to have, people, and this is like my biggest issue. I've said it before, is that politics should not be a social club. This is not, hey, we're friends, Hugo, but you know what I mean? I'm not friends with everybody in the party. This is serious business. I mean, everyone thinks it's fun and this is like a big retirement club, pancake breakfast get together. And those are fine too every now and then, right? But at the end of the day, our objective is to raise money to put moral and ethical candidates to represent the people of the United States, specifically the state of Colorado, right? And if we're treating this like it's who's getting picked for dodgeball in kindergarten, we're going to get kindergarten candidates and we're going to get kindergarten policy. And we've seen that all across the state this last year. So
come on, Adam. Now you want to be rational.
I get yelled at on these things for speaking my blunt, honest truth about that. But I mean, this is like we've talked before. This is why I got involved in local politics about 2 years ago. Like I said, I've been on the federal side for 15 years. And, I always tell myself, like, there's no way that local politics could be worse than Washington, D.C. Oh, my God, was I wrong? This place is worse, when you get down to the individual community level. I've never seen people more viciously attacked. I've never seen people with more irrational thought. I've never seen people in on more money laundering schemes in my entire life than I have here, minus maybe like the war in Ukraine or something.
And, I hearken back to my early days in the party. I joined the fray back in 1980 when I signed up to work for Ronald Reagan's campaign down in Texas.
How old were you, Hugo? Like 21 at the time?
1980, I was 30 something.
No, but that's great. I mean, that's the age we want people to get involved in politics, right? In their 20s and 30s. And like you started off your career, so you at a young age, and that's good. They let you started getting involved in that time frame. And I think what we're seeing now is we're not seeing the same movement where younger people are allowed to be involved in this transition in the conservative movement as well, right?
Yep. So I said that to say this. When I started, and in full disclosure, I am a former Democrat. Okay, I was a Democrat till 1979, and Jimmy Carter was the last straw for me. And what happened is in 1979, I happened to hear a speech by Ronald Reagan, and it was like a light switch went off. And immediately I changed my party affiliation, signed up for the Reagan campaign, and the rest is history. But in Texas at that time, Texas was pretty blue in 1979.
Mm-hmm.
And the county that I was in, it still is. It's grown. It's about 54% Hispanic. Okay. And we, the Democrats controlled every major office. I mean, just basically kind of like here now, where the Democrats hold all the major offices. And we got together as a group. I started, going to small meetings. And fun fact, one of the meetings that I ended up attending was there was a gentleman there by the name of John Schneider from Dukes of Hazzard.
Going way back to the general off of hay bales.
I know, man. It's like, and I thought I recognized him at first, and I said, "No, it can't be. And then, sure enough, he got up to speak, and it was him. So I got to meet him, and we chatted, and he's a great guy, man. He's very conservative, and he didn't want to live in Hollywood because of the shift show that that Hollywood is. But family guy, but he was very involved. And, we started meetings, small meetings throughout the district and all, and we would talk about how do we get this thing turned around.
Right.
And then fast forward about 15 years is when there was a gubernatorial race in Texas. And W was the nominee for the Republican Party. And he was running against a lady named Ann Richards, who was an ultra liberal. I don't know if you know anything about her, but if you ever get a chance to Google her. She was a trip, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
But we managed to get George elected governor, and at that election, we also won 2 state offices, and then from there forward, Republicans never lost another major state office. So that's 30 years now that it's been ongoing. But the state does have its, blue pockets, like Houston and parts of Dallas and definitely Austin. Austin is like the Boulder of Texas. But I say that to say this. Some people around here say, oh, Colorado's lost. We can't ever get it back, blah, blah, blah.
It's lost if you let it.
Yeah. With that attitude, we don't have a chance.
Yeah.
So, I always tell people when they say, well, I'm leaving the party, I say, well, then fine, go ahead. But don't come back and sit on the sidelines and try to dictate what we're supposed to be doing or not doing. If you're not going to stay in the fight, don't try to put your 2 cents worth in.
No, for sure. I mean, like Hugo, just like you, when I was 18 years old, I was a registered Democrat in the state of New Jersey in 2006, I think. So my first election was John Corzine. He was the governor of New Jersey at the time, and I remember him. And senator, I think. And I remember the reason I did that was because he nominated me for the Air Force Academy, and he flew in on an F-18 at Lakehurst Naval Air Station to give us our nominations there from high school, and I thought that was really cool. But my first presidential election, was 2008, right? And I voted for John McCain while I was at the academy, right? So yep. I switched over to I think I was an independent for a couple years because I didn't really know what the transition between New Jersey and Colorado was. I didn't even switch my residency for a few years because I was an idiot and didn't know how that worked. But no, I've been a registered Republican, ever since I got a little bit older. And I think that happens with a lot of people. So I've pretty much ever since I've been in the state of Colorado, I think since like about 2010 or 2009, like I've been in the Republican Party. And like I said, I've done a lot of federal stuff. And that was my main pitch, was veteran and, military reforms. And it wasn't until the last 2 years where, people in DC were like, oh, you've been doing this for a while. Why don't you get involved in more local stuff? I'm sure you can make a great impact on your community. I just didn't expect to get death threats after I decided to do that, but here I am.
Yep. So, getting back to the Central Committee meeting, and it started right away. I logged in, and the first thing I see on my screen is host has turned off audio for this meeting.
Perfect.
And I'm thinking, so nobody's going to get to speak or whatever. And then I later found out
definitely not you.
It was, definitely not me. But I have to say, I got right in, and then I was put into one of the rooms that they had, one of the 9 rooms, and got credentialed right away, had my little C next to my name, and then the next thing I know, I'm dumped back into the main room. And in the main room, there was these 2 ladies, volunteers, bless their hearts. They were doing a good job. But one of them had kind of a lackadaisical attitude whenever somebody would bring up an issue. For example, a couple of people that were getting on there said, I was credentialed, but I never showed my ID.
How does that work?
And so the one lady says, oh, that's okay. We can do it now.
Oh, yeah.
And
so, show your ID on YouTube live for the world, for all the Chinese governments to take all your information down.
So anyway,
number that and your went credit on. Card, preferably.
That went on with several people. It wasn't just one person that said that. And somebody brought up a good point. Said, okay, some of these people were honest and said, hey, I didn't get to show my ID, but how many got in didn't show their ID and didn't say anything.
Didn't they complain about credentialing at the last meeting this happened to, Hugo?
Yep,
That's weird.
exactly. This was the whole
Double
issue
standard.
about the virtual meeting is the credentialing process.
Correct.
There's no rhyme or reason on how it was done. They claim it was totally secure and blah blah blah, but I'm not buying it. And then it got very chaotic and suspect because some members never got the vote, and there's a question mark as to how many didn't get the vote. But I've heard as many as 40 people did not get the vote.
Well, and the election was determined by 11 votes. That's weird.
11 votes exactly. So where did those other 40 votes, or where would have those other 40 votes fallen? Do we know? We don't know. But however,
yeah, it wasn't a moral and ethical process, right? And that's all I've ever asked in this process. Hey, if Richard Holtorf really won, or if Mark Hamden really won, that's great. But all the votes should be transparent and open and honest, right?
Yep.
And for some odd reason, we just can't figure this out over several meetings with the same circus and the same bread.
And there was one member that called me or texted me and said he got dumped into a room all by himself and never put back into the main room, so he never got the vote.
So that's that. Even then, like I said, how many people did that happen to, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, the chair repeatedly refused to acknowledge members for motions and or comments.
I don't think that you're allowed to do that.
Yeah, there was a couple, she was handpicking her cronies to speak. And she wasn't going by order of, of people raising their hands, which is the proper way to do it is you go in the order that people raise their hands. Just in a live meeting, that's how it works. You get in a line and you get your turn to speak.
Doesn't surprise me.
She wasn't doing that. All right.
She had a really terrible camera filter. She looked very purple. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, towards the end, yeah, her camera went totally bogus, and she was in a purple haze.
It's like a gateway computer from like 2001.
And
like, come on, people. We're modern. Look at Hugo and I. We got modern technology, modern cameras. Like, get with the time. If Hugo can do it, then I think Bird Horn can do it too.
Yeah, man, I'm 76 years old, and people
right. He's still with it, right? I think you're running for president next after J.D. Vance, right? Like, you're just on a roll.
So anyway, fast forward a little bit. So the main meeting, proceeded. She ignored all the calls for point of order, point of information. There was a motion to adjourn. She ignored that. There was, just total chaos with regards to the process. And
but didn't they do that with the bylaws thing with David Williams and like Lauren Boebert did that, and then Michelle Gray, and they were able to shut down the meeting, right? You know what I mean? And I'm not saying like that wasn't what happening as well, but like if there is a proper process and people do have points of order, points of information, then they need to be heard and dictated by Robert's Rules of Order. That's why we have organized meetings in a rule book for a reason, right?
Yeah, because we were trying to. You have to go through the approval of the rules, approval of the credentials report, etc.
Yep.
And nobody had confidence in the credentials report, but they claim that the vote was in favor of approval. But how do we know? You don't know, and that's the problem. And I wasn't buying the numbers they were displaying on there either, because if we take the vote for the vice chair as an example, it was a pretty even split in the party. But all these other votes were like 75-25. So I'm not buying that. So yeah. That's another point. Now we're exploring some options and seeing what can be done. But realistically, that part is done. Now, in the second meeting, which was the subsequent meeting to the election, they were addressing my petition that I had submitted with the 3 points about the opt-out vote, who should present the opt-out vote to the Secretary of State, and the issue about the conflict of interest with the party attorney, who also happens to be the personal attorney of Britta Horn.
Wait, you're allowed to do that?
Steve Klenda. No, you're not allowed to do that.
Okay. I mean, to be fair, I don't know. I'm not an SEC member. You know.
So I spoke, okay, to
Yeah.
my petition, and that was the last thing I got to say. She heard it, she muted me, and then she put on Steve Klenda 3 or 4 times to refute all the points of the petition, and he addressed the part about the ethics and the conflict of interest, and he says, well, there's no conflict of interest because I'm no longer supporting, or I'm no longer representing her personally, privately. But what he failed to say is, as an attorney, if you have represented a person once, and then you're going to go represent a entity that she is the head of, that's a conflict of interest,
Yeah, I would say
regardless
so.
of whether you personally are representing her at that time. So, and then he tries to go, oh, you can file a complaint with the ethics committee at the bar, blah blah blah, and little does he know that it may be coming. But at the very least, it ended up where, since it was after 10 o'clock by that time, people were tired. People were not really paying attention.
Right.
But surprisingly, there was still about 340 people on the call even at that time.
Wow.
So it ended up where Weston got to put in a motion to adjourn and postpone these topics to the September 27th meeting. So my petition will come back up at the September 27th opt-out vote meeting, and we'll address it. We'll be a little bit more prepared for that now.
Hopefully it's in person this time.
It is in person, yes.
Good, as it should be.
They just haven't announced the venue, but I'm guessing it'll be the church in Castle Rock that's selected. It's already been offered. It's been confirmed that it's available. So that's the place to do it. And it will not be a hybrid meeting. It's 100% in person.
Should be, yep. And maybe there'll be Chick-fil-A again. You never know.
Yeah. So that's kind of what happened with the two meetings. People walked away with a bad taste in their mouth. I've seen all the comments on social media and some of the private groups, etc. And
well, if you can't gain confidence in your own party's electioneering process on the internal operations side, then how can you possibly gain confidence in winning elections, getting candidates elected, and even fighting the Democrats?
Exactly.
Right.
They claim Richard Holtorf pontificated about time to move on. Now we need to work and come together and fight the Democrats and blah blah blah. And
he's the one who called us a purple blue state.
Yeah.
And dropped his gun on the floor and purposely and intentionally pronounces my name wrong every single time just to piss me off. He calls me DeRito. I'm like, my okay,
DeRito.
Look, everyone knows who I am by now. Okay, it's obviously DeRito. If you want to make fun of me as a corn chip, that's fine, but don't say DeRito. It's just disrespectful to the Italians.
And this is a conservative who paid for his girlfriend to get an abortion, and he claims to be pro-life. This is a guy whose voting record score is D.
Yeah, I don't understand why we elect people or allow them to continue. If you look, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Like anything below 70%. You know what I mean? I'll give you a little bit of buffer. I understand there's some contentious districts with issues, but if you're not voting Republican, at least 20% over 50, what are we doing? You're obviously not going to be instilling conservative values and what you claim to be winning back conservative ideals and representing conservative families in the state.
Yeah. Well, look at Barbara Kirkmeyer. She's got an F rating.
And she's going to run for governor.
Exactly.
She's already registered her websites,
Yep. So that's going to be another shift show. So anyway, so we'll see what develops out of that. I don't think that we're going to get much change at all. I want to see how much Britta pays attention to Richard, because Richard thinks he's gonna be heard, and if she didn't listen to Phelan, she's not going to listen to Holtorf is just going to be a placemat there at the party, and maybe he likes that. I don't know, but
yeah, but they're so behind the curve at this point. Like I said, like I've been paying attention to the reality of what's really going on. I mean, you've probably seen the conversation I've been having with people in the background, but like, hey guys, Gabe Evans has already had like over $1 million raised against him, right? Like Michael Bennett has raised a couple $1 million already. Lauren Boebert is going against a rear admiral with 26 years in the Navy as a defense advisor for Biden, raised over almost $2.5 million already. And we're sitting here. I have no idea how much money they've raised so far, but it ain't that much money, not even remotely close. And we're talking about individual single districts, not even collectively as the party.
If what I read correctly was they were saying Gabe has 1.7 million in the bank.
Yeah, he does, but I'm talking about Manny Rootnow.
Okay.
his opposition, right? Like they're raising a lot of money. Manny Rootnow's got 233,000 followers on Instagram, and Gabe has 1,377.
Yep, and I was chatting with a person in his district who is an activist and has worked and knocked on doors, etc. And she was defending him regarding this Dignity Act, which we're going to talk about here briefly shortly.
Gladly.
But, and she was saying that he was going to get reelected, and I said, I don't know how, because he just disenfranchised at least, I don't know, 50% of his voting base from the conservative side. So
he only won by 748 votes.
Yep. So I said, look, and I've sent him a message personally and indirectly. I said, if he will repent and come back and say I was wrong, blah, 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 I would welcome him back into the fold. But with his little video stunt that he pulled,
Salazar out of Florida.
Yeah. Well, you saw him walking in the halls of the congressional offices. He did.
I was there. I was there when it was going on. It was not good. And I don't mean to interrupt you though, but it was just like I said, we were going around for veteran bills and trying to get these things in for the last week of debate, and had a lot of great conversations with a lot of awesome people outside the state of Colorado, because I can't get a single Colorado representative to do their job apparently. And all of a sudden it turns around like, hey, aren't you in District 8? Like getting fingers pointed at me. And I'm like, yes. They're like, your representative is pulling this XYZ. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. We're watching it live in real time at the Capitol. And I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing? And I will tell you from senior Trump administrative officials that I was talking to and walking the halls with at that time, and when I was at the White House, President Trump is not happy at all. And neither is the director of ICE. Right. So I'm just saying I understand his leniency towards it, because I think he thinks if he acquiesces to the Democrats and the liberal, or conservative leaning libertarians on this issue, it'll gain him more votes than the conservative base will. And that's his hope in trying to win that slim margin over Manny. I don't see it happening. I see that putting all your ducks in that basket, so to speak, or eggs in a basket, ducks, eggs, whatever.
I don't think he understands. I don't think he understands Hispanic immigrants as well as he thinks he does.
I work with them every day.
Yep, exactly, and
they're not happy either.
Over 80% of legal Hispanics who have come here and become citizens are vehemently opposed to both illegal immigration and amnesty in any form, because a lot of them have people in their home countries in the pipeline trying to emigrate here the right way, and they don't like line cutters, line jumpers, and so this is what this is. Now, I've been reading and studying the bill, but here's a summary of what the bill presents. It grants legal status and protections to undocumented immigrants already living in the U.S. I'm not sure exactly how far they're going to go back, but I'll get to it in a minute. Reforming the asylum screening process to provide an opportunity for review and access to counsel. And that point is good. I think we should reform the asylum screening process. They shouldn't be getting screened here. They should be getting screened somewhere else outside the country.
Yeah, outside the embassy. Yep.
Creating new regional processing centers so migrants do not have to make the perilous journey to the U.S.-Mexico border to seek asylum. Well, that's that's just no brainer. I mean, we all know the perilous journey for, especially for women and children, that these coyotes and all these cartels bring these people up in.
Right.
Investing in border security and more modernizing land ports of entry. That's already been taken care of. So that's a nothing burger.
Yep.
Mandating accountability for ICE. What the hell does that mean?
Exactly.
Accountability? What, accountability for doing your job? What the hell?
Yeah.
And providing a pathway to citizenship for dreamers.
And this is the problem that I had, because I also have studied the bill extensively, right? Because I had to know when people were asking me questions in DC, like off the cuff, like, what do you think as one of his constituents? And I said, well, the problem is that the bill offers legal status before ensuring full border control. And that is not what President Trump ran on, right? Is that we're going to secure the border and then we're going to navigate this, because we have to get these illegal immigrants out, whether they're dangerous or whether you've been here for 10, 20 years. Like, I'm sorry, but like, you still broke the law. Like, you want to be an American citizen, be an American, and this has historically failed to stop future illegal immigration in the past. Right. And another thing I have a problem with that, it still rewards illegal entry. Right. And what I mean by that is that even with fines and background checks, the act gives those who broke immigration laws still a legal pathway. So this is unfair, like you said, to those who do follow the rules and have families in the pipeline to get up here. So basically, them offering this permanent residency is still amnesty, right? And although the bill technically avoids the word citizenship, it's still granting permanent residency, which is the de facto amnesty. And it just opens the door for this to continue to go on for future naturalization. So, like, there's a huge lack of strong enforcement mechanisms. The bill trusts that the federal government is going to ensure all these future promises. And this strategy has repetitively failed. Like, we promise we're just going to let the DACA people in. We promise it's just going to be this one time. We're going to let the seasonal workers get a bypass. We have processes. We have rules. They already exist. And yes, will Americans have to take up some of these jobs? And you know what? But here's another thing, too, because I talked to my scaffolders today, my pipe fitter welders, my vac truck drivers. They're all Hispanic. Like, I said, like 80% of the guys I work with are all Hispanic. And they were pissed because they were just like, well, this is undercutting our wages, right? Because they bring in some of these illegals and, these guys are making good money. But like when the vac truck drivers or the supply truck drivers come in and they're getting undercut by $15 an hour, they lose that shift work. Yep. Because they hired somebody to come in and undercut them. And they're like, no, but I've been doing this job for 5 years. Like, yeah, but the other guy down the street is cheaper for the day. And we don't have to report it because he still gets a badge to enter the facility. Mm-hmm. Right. So this is actually making them legitimately angry and critical, especially in District 8, like the refinery and all the industrial. You got the train yards, you have the refinery, you have the pipelines, you have all the electricians and the power plants there. I mean, it's literally the industrial heartbeat of Colorado. And a lot of these Hispanic legal immigrants and their families have built a life and they're living the American dream and they're doing things the right way. But when you allow all these exceptions and everything else, it undercuts them. It makes them angry with each other. Then you have these bullshit arguments about environmental justice and you're giving the kids cancer and these poor kids, it's not their fault. Yes, it is. Yes, it is your family's fault. Right. And no one, and I'll give Gabe this, like he's been doing a good job when it comes to like, the Venezuelan, migrant thing and the violence. And that's been a big issue in Commerce City and Brighton and Adams County, a big issue. Right. But we're not getting enough of them out. It needs to go faster. But, and Phil Weiser pulled that crap the other day. And this is another thing our state representatives need to work on even harder, is that our federal law enforcement should be able to work with our local law enforcement on these issues, right? And this whole hands-off approach, and we're not taking responsibility, and then we're going to charge the police officers for working with federal law enforcement officers like they did with that lady they pulled over in Grand Junction, and now they're accusing him of being in a signal text message thread with federal officers. It's just like, what are we doing? What is the intent, right? The intent is to fulfill Agenda 47, America first and Americans first. What is an American at this point? Just because you cross the border does not make you immediately an American, right? What? And another great solution we have to this, Hugo, is like, what? If you want your citizenship that quick and you want to bypass the process, you know what you can do? You can join the United States military. You can earn your citizenship by wearing a uniform and really learning what it means to serve for this country and sacrifice something. And I guarantee you're going to appreciate your citizenship a lot more if you did that.
Yeah, and to that point, there would have to be some serious vetting, though, because you don't want to be drawing in potential, subversion.
And they've had a few issues with that in Camp Pendleton, but even now, like, when you join the military, you got to fill out an SF-86. You have to go through a background check. You have to go through your family, your history and everything else, and they will background check on you. Like, as an intel guy, that's what we do when we bring people in. They had a few screw ups about 10 years ago in Camp Pendleton where they let some cartel dudes into the Marine Corps. That a couple 240 Bravos went missing out in Southern California and they went across the border. Yeah, that's a problem. But also Trump wasn't president then, so I don't care.
Yeah.
Right.
So, there's a lot to unravel in this bill, and I'm going to be getting into more detail.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I've read is not bad of the bill, but the parts that irk me are the parts about the basically amnesty part of the bill. Yep. Because you can call it whatever you want; it's still amnesty. Yep. And there should be no amnesty. The president didn't run on amnesty.
It's one of his campaign promises.
Deport, and overwhelmingly Americans agree that he's doing a good job with that. So I believe in my heart of hearts and my suspicious mindset that somebody got to somebody and got these 9 Republicans to sign on to this proposed bill and make it look like it's a bipartisan thing. And if Mike Johnson lets this come to the floor, then he needs to go.
I've said Mike Johnson needs to go for a while now, but that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, well, this would be the death knell for Mike Johnson if he lets this come to the floor. This needs to be killed in committee and not ever heard from again. If we want to do some of the things that are in this bill, there's a mechanism to do that.
Sure.
And propose. And, I'm not saying there's not room for improvement in some parts of the immigration process, the asylum process, but we do not need to open up this can of worms of amnesty again. Nope. It's harkened back to the 80s when they duped President Reagan into doing it.
California.
And they promised him the moon and delivered nothing. And they laughed all the way through the process. The Democrats did. So
100%. And we're going to lose our culture, Hugo. Look what's happening in Western Europe right now. Germany, England, France, they're going through some really hard issues with basically, if you want to know what's going to happen to the United States if we allow this to continue, look what's happening to Western Europe. They're losing their culture. They're building mosques in the middle of London, right? And it gets way worse when you start bringing in the Western African nations and the Muslim nations, I promise you. Look what's happening in Minnesota and Michigan and everything else. There's Somalis that are going to win mayor in some of our major towns. And the guy was born in DC or whatever else it is. But these people, they have allegiance to other countries and they send our American money to their families overseas. They don't care. They care about duping the American taxpayer, right? They take all this money, all these the COVID-19 relief scams. They're scamming people out of money for fake food programs for refugees, or they all claim to be single mothers. And what they're really doing is that they go into the emergency room, they get free care, and then they go walk outside and their husband picks them up in a Mercedes. And then they go to another thrift store and they buy and sell goods with your tax dollars to sell them to their friends. And the Somalis are known to scam people. Same thing with the Nigerian prince scams. They do the same thing everywhere. And we're sitting here and going like, well, we just need to give them a chance. No, we don't need to give them a chance to steal our money and our way of life, right? If they don't want to be Americans, they don't want to actually go through the right process, then they don't want to be here. They just want to take us for granted because I think Americans are too naive to understand how the world really works. Like I can't just go to Italy, or like I said, I'm leaving for the UK here in like 2 weeks. I can't just stay there because I feel like it. I'll get arrested. And I would actually get arrested more than the guys that are coming up from West Africa, because if I say anything, I'm a racist, right? Like they don't care.
Well, I was reading about Japan and how they handle their immigration process. And they absolutely will not allow Muslims into Japan. And those that are have somehow gotten into the country illegally, they came up with a program where they give $25,000 to self-deport. And from what I understand, it's highly successful. But
that's insane.
Who's going to turn down $25,000?
Right.
The question mark is, well, do those people take that money, self-deport, and then come back in? I don't know.
Or probably just come over to the United States after that because they'll get, now they have the money, right?
They probably, they use that money to get over here and and over here they just open up the pocketbooks and welcome them.
Yep.
But yeah, there's the Muslim religion is not coherent with the American Constitution.
Correct.
And people that don't understand that are not paying attention. You know who Robert Spencer is? Have you ever heard of him?
No, I haven't.
Okay, Robert Spencer is an author, and he has done extensive. I have like 5 of his books, and he has written so much about the Muslim movement, the jihadists, and how the process is, how they're systematically just working to. And this was back 10, 15 years ago when he was warning the Europeans in Germany and in the UK, in France, about the influx of Muslims. And now everything that he wrote about back then is coming to fruition in those countries.
Well, I mean, there's a reason why Charles Martel the Hammer stopped them in the Battle of Tours after the end of the Crusades from them invading Western Europe. They knew then, like I said, you have the freedom of religion in this country. That's great if you want to live in peace and let us live our lives and not, infiltrate our society and our way of life. But what we're seeing is the destruction of American values through another system that does not align with a nation that was founded on Christian values, right? And that has been proven through Trinity versus U.S., Trinity Church versus U.S. If anyone wants to look up that Supreme Court case, the Supreme Court did decide that we are a Christian nation founded on Christian values, period, end of story, right? And there's a reason why the founding fathers did that, and that's a reason why they pull everything on the Federalist Papers and relate those things. Even though some of them, were atheists or deists or whatever else it is, they still acknowledge that those moral and ethical values in Western Christian culture are what make this country so great. And they said if we're not going to be good enough to defend it, then we don't deserve to have them either.
Yep. All right, that's a wrap for that topic for now. But we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on that, and I may even take a trip up to Commerce City and some of the places and try to interview some of the Hispanic business owners and people up there and see what they think.
Oh yeah, let me know. I'm glad to introduce you to a bunch of them. So.
Yep, awesome. So this other thing that's been on the news, sort of, I don't know that it's been on the mainstream news, but I've found it on YouTube and other places, and it's not a sham. Have you heard about Alberta, Canada, wanting to become the 51st state in the U.S.?
Oh, they actually want to do it? Good for them. We welcome them in here. Let's just start seceding them from the union.
Well,
we could get Weld County to secede to Wyoming. We'll take Alberta, I guess, in succession.
Yeah.
So.
Watch this little clip here. It really blew my mind. I thought it was kind of a sham at first, but then I realized that it's not.
And isn't prepared to make the changes. I have to say, the Americans are still very interested.
Recent polling shows that nearly 20% of Albertans now support joining the United States as the 51st state.
Alberta just dropped a bombshell so hard it could shake all of Canada. Talks of becoming the 51st state are now out in the open.
I can't, unfortunately, work with Canada. We're going to have to spend more time working with the U.S.
With blocked pipelines, unfair taxes, and Ottawa's growing interference, Alberta's had enough. They give billions, get little back, and now they're seriously planning their own way out.
You guys would be welcome in as the 51st state. If Canada doesn't want it, if Alberta wants it, it's on the table.
And it's not just talk. Recent surveys show that nearly 20% of Albertans would actually prefer to be part of the US instead of staying in Canada. 1 in 5. That's not fringe. That's not your uncle who watches too much YouTube. That's real support. Growing faster than Ottawa can ignore it. And some groups have already gone ahead and started engaging with officials across the border to explore what it would even take to make this happen legally. It's no longer a what if, it's a how soon.
Now that might sound small, but think about it. 1 in 5 Albertans would rather be American than Canadian.
And honestly, it kind of makes sense if you look at how things work.
Okay, so, Alberta is like the Texas of Canada.
Correct. Yeah, we actually run a lot of our pipeline systems out of Alberta. So.
They are hot. Big on energy. They are Western culture, super conservative. I mean, I jokingly made up a little thing. I said, I have a good idea. Let's trade California, Oregon, and Washington for Alberta.
It's not a bad deal.
That would be a hell of a deal, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But, people are like, what? Are you serious? And then a couple days ago, I saw another clip that said not only Alberta, but now British Columbia, Saskatchewan are possibly joining the party because they are not happy with Ottawa either. So
I don't blame them.
entire western part of Canada could secede from Canada and become part of the U.S.
Good for them. Good for them.
Isn't that amazing? It's
I love this
crazy,
idea.
man. That just blows my mind. So, that's something to keep an eye on. They're saying that this thing could come to a head here within the next 12 months because
You get a discount on maple syrup moving forward for at least the first year. Is that part of the tariff payment we get to exchange with them?
Then they would lose half their hockey prowess because then they'd be American hockey.
Yeah, we had way better hockey teams if we take the Canadians. You know what I mean? Because they all play here anyway. So,
well, that's going to be something very interesting to keep an eye on. This other story that you I'm sure are aware of is this latest report by Tulsi Gabbard releasing information about Obama.
Yep,
What do you think about that?
Oh, love Tulsi. Like I said, she was my personal boss. I know Tulsi personally. She's an amazing woman. She has the utmost levels of integrity. But here's my thing. Tulsi doesn't have any arrest authority. She's the DNI director, obviously. And I think it's great that she found this and she can stick by the evidence that she stands by. She wouldn't release something that she couldn't prove for sure. That's who she is. She is a woman of integrity. But if you're going to do this, I better start seeing some arrests then, right? I mean, they arrested Trump and they prosecuted him. He went through his due process. Great. I want to see some accountability. I think that's the biggest problem I have with the administration. Like I said, everyone's like, oh, you just do everything that Trump says. No, it's fine. Like I still want to see the Epstein files, right? True or not true, whatever you want to say, I want to see all the evidence on the table. I want to see accountability for Afghanistan. I want to see accountability for, the COVID reintegration of the military guys who got kicked out. And if you're telling me that all these things were performed by these high-ranking officials in the past in 2016 and you have the evidence to prove it, due process. That's what our Constitution's about. But you can't just throw that out there into the wind and not make some arrests and have some accountability. You just can't.
Yeah,
do that.
and there's no, if I'm not mistaken, there's no statute of limitations on treason.
Good.
So
Bring them in.
That
Let's
means
go.
Comey, Clapper, Brennan,
Mm-hmm. Hillary Clinton
and Obama, yep. Hillary and Obama. That would be the coup there.
Well, I mean, Hillary Clinton is basically like the Barb Kirkmeyer of the United States, right? I mean, in terms of subversing the party and controlling elements and things like that. I know I'm probably not supposed to say that, but whatever. It is what it is.
They enrich themselves, at our expense, obviously.
Power is addictive, and unfortunately, when you get rid of your moral and ethical values on those things, it's something you need to be aware of. And if that's who you are, maybe you need to take a step back and retire.
They should have nailed them back in Mena, Arkansas, back in the day.
Yeah, like nobody talks about the whole, like, what was it, the White River scandal or whatever it was? Like there was
Whitewater,
Whitewater scandal. Yeah, wild. You know what I mean? Like nobody talks about that stuff.
Oh, that was huge, and nothing happened.
Nope.
And
so, like I said, it's great that this is all coming forward, but I'll believe it when I see some arrests. I got to see some of these things. Like,
that's where I'm at too. I said, it's great to talk about it, but let's see some action.
Yep.
If you get, if they're gonna arrest President Trump, then there's no reason why we can't arrest President Obama.
Yeah, put him through his due process. Put him through court.
Yep, indict him, and let's see where the chips fall. But I got a feeling this thing's going to come to a head one way or the other. But if nothing happens, then there's going to be, I think some repercussions going forward because
I would agree.
People are fed up with, oh, we got this, we got that, we're going to get them. No
more nothing burgers. I want to see some results.
Yeah, I want to see those results.
But they did convert Matt Lohmeyer as the Undersecretary of the Air Force today, finally. I'm very excited about that. I know Matt personally as well. Air Force Academy grad who got screwed over for calling out DEI and communist teachings at the academy and then got kicked out of the Air Force. / Space Force. So really excited for him. Hopefully he's going to start bringing that accountability back to the military. It's what we've been advocating for a long time. But like I said, it's great that we have all these names and all these people in power, and that's what we voted for. But let's start seeing some results from that.
Yep. So, the other thing that I've been noticing is some of the things that are kind of shaking out here in Colorado. We've got the governor's race is at the top of the list, but what's her name? Jenna running for attorney general. That's like putting the fox in charge of the hen house. I mean, how in the world?
With a blowtorch to a gasoline station. I don't understand why that's legal.
Yeah, I don't understand how someone who has been as corrupt as she is going to be a good candidate. I think if certain things shake out and we get a good candidate, I mean, that race may be winnable because
it might be, but the problem is we can't figure out what day it is. You know what I mean? We can't run a Zoom meeting. We can't elect officials. We can't raise money. And like I said, I haven't seen any viable candidate even put up against Jenna at this point. Haven't even heard names. Right. And we're getting a real late start on this right now. Right.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying too. And somebody suggested also the governor candidates. We've got like 16 or 17 of them now, but let's just say the top 4 or 5. Somebody was saying that there's some candidates there that maybe should withdraw from the governor's race and run for some of these other offices, like Attorney
we
General,
should unite behind single candidates,
Secretary of State, et cetera, and try 100%. To go after these. And because not all of them are going to succeed, obviously. I can't read the tea leaves right now as to what the primary is going to hold. Obviously, our opt-out vote in September is going to have something to say about it. But a lot of people don't understand why we have a field of 16 for governor.
Egos.
Ego. Egos is one of them, but it happened back in, I think in 22, where we had a big field and 2 emerged, and then Heidi ended up winning the nomination. I think in hindsight, Greg would have given them a better run for their money, but the powers that be pulled Heidi in at the last minute, and she ended up winning. But if you look back at the race, with very little resources, Greg got almost 400,000 votes in that race. So.
Well, and Heidi's still pulling the strings behind the curtain right now, too. Her intention is likely, my estimate and my best estimate is that she's going to be running hand in hand with Barb Kirkmeyer. They're going to try to influence the Senate, after that as well. I think that's their plan. But unfortunately, I don't see that as a viable economic or smart option.
No, it's just we got to get some kind of game plan going, and some of the groups that I've been involved with have some good ideas, and I think unfortunately we're just going to have to do them outside the party, and
that's what I've been doing,
and get people involved and go directly to the people.
Yes,
we have to get a good ground game and make inroads that way, because if we sit back and wait on the party, we're not going to see anything. And so I personally pulled my donations from the party.
So
I will be donating, directly to candidates of my choice.
Yep.
And I think the money will be well spent that way. But
I agree.
We just can't continue down this path, and we'll see what happens in the next 2 months coming up on this opt-out vote meeting.
Yeah, but I think the fall is going to change a lot of things for sure. We got the opt-out vote. That's when campaigns are really going to start to seriously drop. We're going to start seeing candidates emerge with better platforms and everything else. Then we have to start making decisions about who to solidify against. Like I said, I've seen a couple of the candidates for various offices speak in person, and unfortunately, right now, I'm not that impressed. You know what I mean? I'm like, you're not going to beat the Democrats with that kind of attitude. You're just not.
Yep.
You know, you're just not.
So I think we'll just have to kind of take a wait and see attitude, but we're not going to sit on our laurels.
Yeah.
We'll get some things done. I'm still hopeful we get a good group of folks that are out there that are really fed up, and I think we're going to see some action this time around. So
good.
Right after Labor Day is when the season really starts. So we'll just go out and get her done.
Absolutely.
All right. So that brings us to the end of our show for tonight. So we want to say goodnight to everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully we brought you some good information. If you have any information that you'd like to share with us, always send it to us via email or through our website. And like always, like and subscribe. And if you're inclined, donate so we can do some more bigger things